Anyway, a special thank you to Lee Eversole for organizing this. There was a lot of time and effort. So at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the 2014 West Virginia Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Erin Spinagle. Erin is a nationally board certified teacher. She teaches 5th grade at Tomahawk Elementary School in Hedgesville, West Virginia. She earned her bachelor's in elementary education from Shepherd University and a master's of arts in educational leadership from West Virginia University. In addition to her teaching duties, Erin is a public speaker and workshop presenter at colleges and universities. She facilitates online courses for West Virginia Learns, and she is a candidate support provider for the National Board candidates. Erin has been recognized for exceptional innovative teaching by Discovery Education, ING Unsung Hero, Golden Apple from EPAC, and Honeywell Endowment for the Humanities. This year, Erin will be working with West Virginia Public Broadcasting System as a digital innovator. Please welcome Mrs. Erin Spinagle.
Good morning. Good morning. It's so good to be with you today. When they asked me if I would come to Harper's Ferry and speak, I was like, yes! Because Harper's Ferry is only 44 minutes from me. So, and I have passed the 10,000 mile mark on my card that they gave me to drive this year. So, yeah, I'll come to Jefferson County anytime. That's not far at all. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm honored to speak to principals, those that are the head teachers in our buildings. It's amazing what a difference a year can make. This time last year, I was at Berkeley County's Leadership Academy, and I was flipping out because it was T-minus 3 days until I went to Charleston for my interview to be the state, or to possibly be the state teacher of the year. And I was a mess. So I was really trying to concentrate on what they were saying at the Leadership Academy. At the same time, I'm listening to these very articulate, very talented teachers talk about their data teams, and I was really feeling like I was really out of place. But they were so good to me. They were so, the principals that were there were willing to listen to my speech and to support me, which the support has been phenomenal from my county this year. But that's where it all began, was that interview, and the principals who were behind me and supporting me, even though I was probably not too fun to be around that week, but I was really trying to have my head both places at the same time. Just 2 weeks earlier, before that interview, I was in Germany to learn about their education system and culture. I'll show this picture a lot because it's the only picture I've had time to put on my computer since all this happened. This is Boitzenberg Castle in East Germany. But 2 weeks before I did my interview, I had a terrible accident in Germany. I was getting on a train in Frankfurt to go to Heidelberg, and I'd been up for 30 hours and I slipped on the bottom step. And within an instant, I was from the chest down between the steps of the train and the train platform. It's not a good place to be. And it happened so fast that I wasn't scared, or I didn't have time to be scared. But the teachers that were with me, within seconds, had pulled me up and got me on that train. And within 24 hours, I was experiencing German healthcare because my legs swelled up. But I didn't break anything. I had a really bad bone bruise. Anyway. But, you know, they lifted me up and they got me where I needed to be as that train was pulling out. And isn't that what this is all about? Being a principal, being a leader of a school. It's about lifting people up, getting them where they need to be. Because education is a fast-moving train, and it's always headed somewhere else. So as leaders, we have to be able to look for those that are falling, whether it's students or teachers, and pull them up and get them where they need to be. But I have been lifted up this year, continuously, whether it's been principals in my county that have been willing to help me out and give me confidence, or the teachers in my school, or the people that I've met throughout the state of West Virginia this year that are willing to lift me up so that I can do what I need to do to represent education in the state. So, you have insurmountable responsibilities as an administrator. I could be an administrator if I wanted to, but I don't want to. Been asked several times if I would take it on, but my heart's in my classroom right now, and I really hope they stop asking me because I feel like I upset people every time I tell them no. But you've got so much to be responsible for, and I don't know how you do it because I just spoke to my principal just yesterday about just the scheduling and the textbooks and the meetings and the conferences and the meetings and the parents and the students and the meetings, and it's just never ending. But what it all comes down to is our why. Why did you become a teacher? And I don't ask you why you became a principal as much as I'm asking you why you became a teacher. Because even though you are an administrator or a leader of some sort in Jefferson County schools, you are, in fact, still a teacher. What you do, what you say, how you present yourself, what you decide is going to be your focus in your school building is what other people are going to learn from. We get so bogged down in all the expectations of us, but even though we're knee-deep in data points, that's another thing in there. Testing, data analysis, meetings. But behind it all is why we got into it to begin with. What brought us to this place? What brought us to this point in our lives where we are leading and have so much that is expected of us and have such an opportunity to influence the teachers and students and parents in our schools? What it all comes down to, whatever your why was, whatever brought you to education, it's this word. At some point when we decided to enter education, joy is what drove you to go into it. Either the potential for joy, that's what you would get out of being a teacher, or what you could bring to others through that position. Joy, happiness, the ability to lift people up is why we are here today. Maybe we lost that joy. Maybe it's really hard to chase after some days. But joy, that ability to lift people to where they need to be, and to lift yourself to a point where you can have that influence and impact on others, that is what brought you here. We need to get back to our joy, and it's really hard to do when we feel so bogged down in what we have to do, what we're mandated to do in our schools. But your teachers in your building need to see that you have joy, that you found your purpose for why you are in your building. As I said, you are the main teacher in your building, and when you show that you are happy to be there, that you are driven to be there, and that you are going to have the ability to change the dynamic and the atmosphere in your school, that can do so much for your school community. So, along with joy comes voice. Voice is a very powerful thing in education. But as a leader, you have a lot of it. People are looking to you to say something, and your words carry a lot of weight. That's one thing that I've learned this year a lot, is that people want to hear what you have to say when you're a leader, whether you were expecting that or not. And it took a little getting used to, but now I kind of like it. But your voice, as an administrator, can have such an impact on others. We have things that we're obligated to do. We have things that we must do because that's what our expectations are, what's federally mandated or what is mandated by the state. But that doesn't mean we can't speak up. And we can't say what our teachers need and what our students need to excel. You have a why, you have joy, somewhere in there what brought you to this profession, and you have voice. That's a lot of power. that you have as a person, to speak out and to speak up for what needs fixed. And I've seen a lot of what needs fixed in this state as I've traveled this year. You know, as Robert mentioned, you know, we are so fortunate here in the Eastern Panhandle. You get an hour out of this Tri-County area, and it's an entirely different world. And it took me by surprise at first, because I'm from Martinsburg. I've taught here the majority of my career. And to step into schools where there is such a need and so many things that can't be fixed necessarily by a teacher in a day or a year or ever, but it's just, we are so fortunate. And I think we really need to get out throughout the state and break down these geographical barriers and work together to bring attention to the needs of the students throughout the state, regardless of where they live. But there are so many children in this state that are up against insurmountable odds, but the teachers that I have met in those areas, they have a resilience that astounds me. You know, we can't fathom in this area some of the things that these other teachers, other principals must contend with and still make the grade. But I really want to see the Eastern Panhandle reach out and see what's going on in the rest of the state, because we have the opportunity to be an incredible voice to lift up those in areas of the state that need to be heard and need to be given assistance. So along with voice comes the correct way to use it. Something that I speak to pre-service teachers about a lot is the 4 A's for success in the classroom. But those 4 A's can really be something that we use universally, not only as teachers, but as leaders. And a lot of what comes from the 4 A's is using your voice and being a professional, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute. But my 4 A's that I speak with pre-service teachers about are to ask for what you need to be successful and not be afraid to ask, because it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're seeking the best for your teachers and your students. To anticipate what could be coming along, the art of thinking ahead, something that we develop throughout our careers. And this is where voice comes in, especially to advocate. But as I said, there's a professional way to advocate, to speak up on the changes that need to be made in education, to let others know what should be done or can be done to best service our students. But I make an emphasis on professional because there's a correct way and a wrong way to use social media, and it's something that we need to make sure in our schools that things like Facebook and Twitter are used correctly as professional tools and not as a means to say something in the heat of the moment. We really need to stress that in our schools with our faculty and staff, how we can use social media to advocate professionally for our children, but it's not necessarily a soapbox. And the last A is adapt. Things are always changing, the train is always moving, but we have to move forward positively and evolve so that our students do not suffer as things change. So those are my 4 A's, and that is a very condensed version of what I tell the pre-service guys and gals, but that's the gist of it. So a little bit more about that professionalism through leadership. You know, it's a two-way street. We want to be regarded as professionals in education. We want it desperately, we need it desperately, but at the same time, at the same time, we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can in our schools as teachers and as administrators to exude professionalism. You know, sometimes we want it now, but we have to make sure that we are always acting in a way and presenting ourselves in a way that is professional, that does not allow any room for anyone to talk negatively about how we present ourselves and how we speak and what we do, whether it's during or after school hours. But I think that is the most important goal that we seek to see in our schools, in our faculty and staff, is professionalism. Because when you can exude professionalism, you are bound for leadership. We want our leaders in our schools, we want the person that's the go-to one in our school buildings to exude that professionalism, to be the one that people want to follow by example. Something that I've done this year to give teachers voice, allow them the chance to use that voice professionally, and to give them the opportunity to feel what leadership is like, is my YouTube channel, Be the Difference West Virginia. I know I just told you all about how social media needs to be professional, but this is professional. What I did, I went to every school in Berkeley County, and I interviewed at least 2 teachers about the profession. I gave them the chance to speak about why they wanted to be a teacher. I gave them the opportunity to talk about the joy in their classroom, what they do with their students every day that makes them successful, that helps prepare them for the future. And it scared a lot of them. They didn't want to be on camera. They didn't want to talk to me. They wanted to see the questions ahead of time, and I was totally cool with that. So here are the questions. No worries there. But you never know when you're going to be given the opportunity to be in a leadership position. And as I began my journey this year, I really felt that I was being asked questions that every teacher should be able to answer. That every teacher should be thinking about or be able to speak to someone articulately about if asked. So this was my way to give them a chance to see what I went through every day, but to experience what it was like to have someone want to hear what you had to say. And they ended up really liking it, even the ones that were kind of hesitant at first, because it makes you feel empowered when someone wants to hear what you have to say. And when you realize that you can speak about what you do every day in a way that's going to help clear misconceptions that others may have about the profession. And it gave them the chance to be professional, to present themselves in a way to the public via YouTube that made them feel that they were sharing, and they were, not just feeling that, but they were sharing with the public what it means to be a teacher. And I'm sorry, I didn't interview any principals, but if in hindsight, I should have, because that would have been a wonderful thing to include too, maybe next time. So, I had the opportunity last week to meet this guy. This is Homer Hickam, author of Rocket Boys, NASA engineer who is now retired from McDowell County. I was so excited to meet him. I hope I didn't make a fool of myself, but I probably did. He was so nice, though. He was so just the nicest, most down-to-earth person, and at the very last minute, it was like, they say that the 20 seconds, just 20 seconds of courage. I thought the worst thing he could say was no. I said, would you tape a short message for the students of West Virginia about the importance of focusing on math and science instruction in school? And he said, sure. So I was like to the other teachers there, so, and he did, he taped a very short message to the students in West Virginia about why it's important to focus in school and about finding a mentor, finding someone who will help you reach your goals. It was great. It's on my, I set up a YouTube channel just for International Space Camp. And it's on there. I'm going to put it on my blog here in the next couple of days. But something that I cut off topic because I was really excited to meet him. But something that he says that's in Rocket Boys, he talks about in his presentations, are the 3 Ps, which are planning, passion, and perseverance. And those are all things that we need as leaders in education. And it kind of ties in to the 4 A's, 3 Ps, 4 A's. You know, we have to be thinking about what our schools need. We have to make sure that we have our joy, our drive to make it happen, and we can't give up. We have to keep pulling ourselves up, lifting each other up, so we can get where we need to be. But I really liked what he said about planning, passion, perseverance, because he's somebody that overcame insurmountable odds to be successful, and is a wonderful example to our students and teachers in West Virginia about what you can achieve. So, along with that professionalism and leadership, come to the point where you can't do it all by yourself. And whether you realize it or not, your schools have so many leaders in them. There are so many people in your school that people need to meet. They need to be given the opportunity to speak on behalf of the profession, to share with their peers what they know, to reach other students. And I really encourage you this school year to make it your goal to look for the leaders. Look for those in your school building that are able to lead, that are able to lend their voice, lend their abilities to transforming your schools. But as you look for them, I want to clear something up that's really important to me. And it's leadership versus loudership. I sometimes feel when we're looking for leaders, we always look for the extroverted person. Or that is the person that first makes us say, oh, leader, beep, 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 beep. Because that's the person that is putting themselves out there, that is exercising their voice, likes to talk about what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are excellent extroverts that are leaders. But sometimes I think we confuse leadership with loudership. It's the person that is loud and that is always talking, and it's okay if you're always talking, if you like to talk. But that's the person that we are drawn to lead, to give things to lead. Because, hey, that strikes me as someone who wants to lead, someone who's going to talk and take the initiative. The thing is that you probably have a lot of teachers in your school building that may keep to themselves, may think before they speak, might really like to take something on, but feel because they aren't loud, they are not talkative, that puts a dent in their ability to be a leader. And we've got to stop that. Because there are lots of teachers out there that are so talented, and that ability to think before they articulate is a fantastic asset to getting you where you need to be in your school. And I had to bring this up because I spent years, up until like 2 or 3 years ago, thinking that there was no way I could be a leader, or that I had leadership qualities, because I wasn't the extroverted person, believe it or not, when I'm not speaking to everybody in the state. And I thought that meant that I wasn't a good leader. And then I read this book, Quiet, by Susan Cain, that put it in perspective. That some of our greatest leaders in the United States and the world are not the ones that have loudership. They were the ones that were thinking, the ones that needed time alone to put things together before they presented it. And just as, our students are us, just smaller, as a principal, your teachers are you, or have the potential to be you. They just need to feel empowered. And I encourage you this year to make it your goal to look for the leaders, look for the people with those qualities that make a good leader in a school, that not necessarily involve being the loudest. Sometimes it's the quiet voice, the one well thought out idea that could take you places. So I encourage you, deeply encourage you to go for that. Now, that picture didn't show up very well. That's okay. And like I said, I feel it's important to bring that up. I mean, you have no idea how much of an influence you can have on your teachers and what incredible places you can take them by being their advocate, by being their voice and expressing their joy. And I'll share a little bit about myself with you. This is a picture. This is a really old picture. This is Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader at Tomahawk a couple years ago, more than a couple years ago. But that's me, and that's Lewis Molinex, who was our assistant principal at the time. Anybody know Lewis? Yes! Lewis is great. But anyway, I had to talk to you about how I got here. When I came to Tomahawk in 2005, I had 2 years under my belt teaching, and I came in pretty broken. I had my confidence sucked out of me, and I was pretty jaded for someone who had only taught for 2 years. And I thought that I would give it one more year at another school. And I'm very vocal and candid about my struggle with an anxiety disorder that I have dealt with throughout my adolescence and into my young adulthood. So I had that I really felt was never going to allow me to really contribute anything. And I struggled with that even through my first couple years in the classroom. And then I came to Tomahawk, and then I met Lewis, who was our assistant principal. It was his first year. And that was positivity in an entirely different category. He was so positive and so upbeat, and most importantly, he always found the good in what you did. He was so nice to me. And I was pretty down on myself when I first came to Tomahawk. But my interactions with him were always so positive, and he was always pointing out what you did right. And that made me feel so good. It made me feel like I could take on anything because Lewis said I was good. So I took things on, and I stretched myself to do things that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise, because I knew that he thought highly of me, that he let me know that I had value, even though I didn't have the loudership at all. Still don't. But I had the leadership. I had the drive to improve. I just wanted validation that I could do it. And he was at Tomahawk for 5 years. We missed him a lot when he left, but we have a wonderful principal who was our assistant principal that's not there now, Mrs. McCoy. But Lewis, wherever he goes, exudes joy. He's so positive. He is a wonderful voice for this profession. And wherever he goes, whatever school he's in, that's what he leaves behind. And I can honestly say, had I not run into him, had I not had that example of positive leadership that really lifted me up, I may not be speaking to you today. But that is the impact you can have on your teachers. That is what you can do. Just by letting people know what they're doing right, what they It's what we all want. It's what you want too. We want to know what we're doing right. And you've got a school full of people that need to be lifted up. So I want to give you a challenge this year. And I know it's going to be a challenge because all our schools are so different. But I want you to go back to your classrooms next week, or whenever your students come, or your teachers come rather, for their first day. I want you to look at all of them with the potential to be a teacher of the year. I want you to look for the value in everybody, and I want you to look for a vein, some way to get to them, to help them improve, and help get them where they need to be the best teachers they can be, and be the best leaders. That's what we need to move forward. You've got to look for the good in others. You've got to be positive so that we can get people where they need to be and help them get over what's holding them back. I say this at the end of all my YouTube videos. Be different, but more importantly, be the difference. I like to think that my quirkiness and my difference is what got me to where I'm at today in some form. But that's what we need to be to move education forward. Can't just be, it's good to be different, but use how you're different, use how you vary from everyone else to change things for the better, because you can do it. And as an instructional leader, you have incredible influence over everyone you meet. In particular, your teachers. You could be that person that turns somebody's life around so they can have an incredible impact on this profession. And if you'd like to keep up with my year, you can follow me on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and just, I think that's it. I don't do any of the rest of them. At WV2OY 2014. And I've also got the link to my YouTube channel, which has all of the interviews with every school in Berkeley County, Be the Difference, West Virginia, on YouTube. They're all examples of ways that we can use social media professionally and positively to elevate the profession. But thank you very much for having me today. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak to